and I'm getting mighty tired of your trifling ways and of listening to that jackass Bray.
Again, first of all, thank you guys. Appreciate you kind of joining in here for the inaugural meeting. The first thing I think I'm going to actually do is change the name of the group because it's a little misleading. And I think we have a lot of stuff going on in terms of what Ethereal's doing already, acronym wise and all that stuff. So we're just going to probably simplify this right on down to our weekly Ethereal philosophy meetup and just run it like that because the subtlety of the acronyms I think are losing people a little bit. So we'll try to simplify that a little bit more. But again, thank you guys for being in here, and it's I really appreciate the fact that you are here and willing to kind of start getting into hopefully a little bit more of these deeper discussions and realize that this stuff isn't just us and talking together here. This stuff is going to get posted on our social, on our YouTube, so hopefully other people can see what we're doing, interact after the fact, and hopefully come back in and join us next week and put their 2 cents in and maybe ask some questions, maybe call us on some stuff, maybe critique a couple things here and there, and hopefully inspire a little bit more dialogue. So with that being said, the first kind of topic that we really wanted to start breaking down in our first little philosophy meeting today was the power of dialogue. And then the acronym plug that I use to start talking about these meetings and hopefully getting a little bit of interest. And I know Max is one of the first ones that I got a hold of via social when I started putting the feelers out there, was language. And then eventually I turned that part of the acronym to logic. But ultimately, it all kind of comes together in one spot for me. Whether you're talking the use of language or how it applies to our logic, or vice versa, how our logic applies to the way we use language and how we communicate with each other in general, how it affects our mindset and all that brilliant stuff. When you really start to break that stuff kind of down a little bit more, you ultimately realize that there is a lot of thought from other people kind of being put into the way things are phrased or packaged or presented, whereas maybe there's not quite as much thought being put into those digesting it or reading it and then reproducing it or puking it onto somebody else, whether it's via the media, social media, anything really. Think about the way a phrase is said in a movie could elicit certain feelings. You know what I mean? I could say, this is a brand new phone, and the way I say that could sound like I'm bragging, versus a different way I say it, I could sound very grateful. Maybe I was given it as a gift. You know what I mean? It could be the exact same words. So tone and inflection can also be a big proponent of how that communication can change and the different messages and things that it can elicit. So I guess the first kind of general question I want to pose to the group, and I know I want to start with Chris because we kind of talked about this before and he had some specific things he wanted to mention. But overall, and we'll kind of pass it around. If anybody wants to jump in, you're welcome to after the fact. But how do you notice that language or your interpretation of language in your day to day really affects your mood or what you're doing?
And I mean, a lot of news headlines, right? So the biggest one lately, and I feel like I've talked about this ad nauseum, but it's a hot ticket item right now, the whole COVID thing and different treatments and stuff that are go back and forth about what's effective, what's not effective. Obviously, the mainstream wants you to do one thing and one thing only to fix that problem. But there are some dissenting opinions, that are out there about what can be done. So the biggest thing for me with that has been horse dewormer, right? So you see that in the headlines for mainstream media with respect to ivermectin. And I don't know, I'm not a scientist, biologist, virologist, or anything. So I have absolutely no idea what's truly effective and what's not. But the fact is that for complex subjects, you can really only be a subject matter expert on one, maybe two things, possibly. You know, some people are not experts on anything really, right? And so what you have to do is you have to outsource your knowledge to other experts, and you have to listen to other experts. So there's always a debate about who's an expert on what, or whether or not their opinion is valid. But for the media's part, when you talk about ivermectin or certain treatment for COVID allegedly, and they call it a horse dewormer, yes, it's used for that purpose, right? But what they're trying to do is turn that into a pejorative, right? So, oh, I can't take horse medicine. Well, it's used for humans too, right? But the idea is that if they frame it in that way, they can sway the opinions of the uninformed such that they're more willing to do A rather than B. And so that would be the most notable thing that I've heard recently, where language was used in a specific way to sway the opinion of millions of people about a very specific topic. And you know, again, you can't be an expert on everything, but it just seems to me when the media does something like that, I just have this intuition, this sense that it's being done for all the wrong reasons. And unfortunately, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that is a completely ineffective treatment. And in fact, it's so ineffective that it doesn't do any good and does all bad. Well, a lot of people operate just off of intuition alone. So when they're operating off of that, and I get this sense that like they're just trying to use propaganda to sway my opinion, I'm more likely to head in the other direction, you know? So it actually operates in the opposite way of their intended purpose. So don't mean to go off on a tirade there, but that's just one example of like something that's very big right now and has just really, really irked me. So
Sure, and I think it kind of spurs that that teenage rebellious thing in all of us. You know what I mean? Like you say, go left. All right. Well, what's right? I want to see what's
and
over on the right side. Like
I'm
why are you
all that.
hiding? Right?
Yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
all that.
Well, and it brings another point, and I still want to hear from you other guys if you guys want to chime in. But it also brings up the exclusion of certain language, how that is actually language in itself. You know what I'm saying? Like with what you were saying in terms of the way things were phrased with that specific medicine. But even if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture of that topic or that subject, there's a lot of conversations that are just flat out snuffed that you can't have. Like they're just not entertained. We can't have conversations about uh uh um care beforehand, like being
Yeah.
healthy, vitamin regimens. There's lots of different conversations to have before we get to, okay, now you're, in the emergency room on a ventilator. What do we do? So there's a lot of stuff that, you know, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways that they manipulate that stuff to get a point across. Who else wants to jump in there?
If you don't mind, if I could jump in.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah, man, I'm glad I came in. You guys made me smile now, man. I just had my whole cloud bursted today. But however, topic is actually category. You guys are my kind of guys and ladies to talk about this, because language is very important. Like the other day, I was recording something on Instagram because I want to be able to promote healthy options to people, because I was a challenge to grow physically, substance abuse, you call it. And my language automatically went with bad habits of saying I got some gay shorts on. And I was sharing that verbiage, just that language right there, isn't correct, because it hurts some people who are in the equality community, right? Those words are harmful, and it's cultural too. It's bad habits. Let me sit up here a little bit. Like what Chris was saying with the media and stuff. Well, I learned something in a rehab I was at for veterans, and it was communication. Something that's difficult, even with my friends or my wife. If I want to get something through, like to you guys right now, like I need to paint the picture. So what we did in this study was a psychologist. What she did is that she had us sit back to back to say, "You, Jay, you're my partner, and you sit behind me, and you got, say, a perfect picture of a butterfly, but I have no idea you have a butterfly. And me behind you, I have a blank piece of paper with a pen." The test was that you were supposed to give me in detail your best description of what you had, but without telling me what it was, not giving me like exact directions. You had to go to the center, make a half a circle, go like 2 inches left. I mean, you had to work on your communication skills. What I learned from this, because it brings it to language, right? And communication, no matter how well we try to speak, how well we want to paint that bigger picture, the other person's never going to have that perfect butterfly. And that's what language and communication is key. And also, I am blessed that I started college old age. And I'm really big into political science and civil rights. The question is why? Well, I want to focus on my generation just for me or my son. But I want to focus on the generations to come from the world, like 50,000 years from now, like who knows, right? And our communication, like what Chris was saying, like the whole COVID thing, man, it's got a lot of people scared. It's not cool to implement fear on people. And people, I've learned from being in the streets for so long, that a lot of them, like I read a book when I was in the Navy. It was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if any of you guys have heard it.
Kiyosaki, yeah.
And it would explain that, the ones that succeed are like the wild horses, and the ones that are comfortable, they're like cows waiting comfortably to be butchered, pretty much waiting for death. And I'm glad I read that book. It has taught me to never stop learning and to keep moving forward. I homeless in LA, back from the Navy. I was into a lot of crazy stuff because I came back to my best friends who were into chaotic stuff.
There's a
Since
couple
we're on the
things.
top,
Well, I
I
was
don't
just
want
going
to
to
keep
jump
going down
in.
that rabbit hole. I need you to help me out.
No,
okay?
it's okay.
Pull me out.
There's a couple things that you hit on. I wanted to jump back on there. One of the big things is, and this is like you said, it was a bit of a cultural thing, but I came up playing sports. Okay. And staying back on our topic of language, I grew up in locker rooms from the time I was 8 years old. Okay. The term gay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is something that was thrown around colloquially as an insult, but in a derogatory way to people, to diminish them as socially, not in a sexual context. So as we get more aware, like you said, Max, of the way our words, regardless of how we necessarily intended them when they're heard by other people, can elicit feelings and effects, and we become more cognizant and aware of that stuff, I have to dial back the use of, hey, Tim, your shoes are gay. I can't say that in a public place anymore, not because Tim's going to get hurt, but because I need to be aware that that's not a cool thing to do. And there might be somebody else around that might be homosexual that might take that the wrong way. And was that my intention? Absolutely not. But it could still be perceived in that way. You know what I mean? So the broader view of the use of language is that it's ultimately to the user. I think it kind of points to the point that we're trying to make, like a road sign would. Key West this way. But sometimes the person hearing it doesn't necessarily take it as an arrow. They take it as like coordinates. Does that make sense? Like, this is exactly, well, he said F you. Well, he means he's going to come over here and penetrate me. Well, no, I'm telling you that you're a jerk off and I don't want to deal with you anymore today. There's a literal, adhesion to like the physical. All right, well, F means this and U means this, or there's the interpretation of what we're trying to say, I guess. So yeah, that's one I hadn't specifically thought of, but it's one that was a big one, honestly, for me to get over, because I had to consciously check myself. Like, that was a big, that was a big thing. And I'm laughing now, but I kind of feel bad about how loosely we used it, and knowing that it may have potentially even hurt people that I was friends with in the locker room that maybe didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, dickheads, that's not a cool thing to say. You know what I mean? And I feel bad about that. But at the same time, I can sit and say, I don't feel horrible, because I know I wasn't talking to that person. I was talking to my buddy that just snapped me in the ass with a towel. You know what I'm saying? So no, that's awesome. Good points. Good points. Tim, you got something to add in there, baby?
I don't know. I mean, basically what you were saying about the whole, calling people gay, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm in my late 20s now, so I might have been one of the later generations that still use that while we were growing up, as terms of, just roasting your buddy or something like that. And you're right. You don't know who it affected. You don't know how people, felt about that behind closed doors. And maybe that was the reason somebody dealt with a lot of mental issues and instability in their teenage years, which comes to affect all of us later on in life. Whatever we grew up in and had to deal with in our early years affects us for the rest of our life. And God forbid that was someone's 13th reason or something, because they just kept hearing that word get thrown around. And obviously when it's used in that terminology, or that way, it's not okay. That's the way that comes across, as being, myself, or whatever my sexual orientation is. If that's used as an insult or derogatory in any sort of way, it's not right. It's not okay, but I don't know. What I was thinking of is maybe onto something else about language itself, is sometimes the way things are said. Like, it's not necessarily, you don't have to necessarily insult me or right to my face, like what you said, that someone doesn't have to tell me fuck you, to where I can feel the vibes that they're giving off, whether it's from their communication with the body language or in the tone of voice that they're speaking to me in. I can tell right away of what's going on and what they're trying to portray to me or vocalize to me. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, I don't know, maybe you should be more upfront about it. I don't really know what I'm getting at with that, but the passive aggressiveness of people's voices, or, in their statements that they're making towards you, I don't know. And it's the same, it kind of correlates to the same thing that I think Chris was saying, with the whole thing with media and stuff like that. I'm just going to go the other way. That's just who I am as a person. I'm just going to go the other way,
Well, when you get to the point of developing that bit of societal fortitude or grit, or that thicker hide, you start learning. I mean, you hear the term street smarts thrown around quite a bit. You start learning this stuff. You know what I'm saying? But you're dead on. You're not far off at all there. It's the fact that I can walk up to somebody and shake their hand and say, I hope you have a nice day.
Mhm.
And they get every bit of the fact that I just told them to go F themselves all the way to hell. You know what I'm saying? But I said, I hope you have a nice day. Like, they understand that I just told them, fuck you. Like, they get it with a handshake. You know what I'm saying? They get it. So the language, again, it's not the words, but you have enough wherewithal to know, you've been around long enough to know that it's pointing at something, right? It's not, hey, it's these little exact words. Awesome. I didn't mean to cut off whoever started.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, it's it while you guys were talking on that same subject, it brought me to another one that example wise, and we don't have to go down a laundry list, but it's a hot button one culturally, because obviously things are being pushed towards racial divide, sexual divide, psychological divide, everything. They want to fragment, air quotes, fragmentation is happening in multiple facets, right? And one of those facets is race. So I can easily bring up, I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 85, 90s hip hop. Anybody that's ever listened to 90s hip hop, it's gang banging, it's fucking bitches, it's getting money, it's selling dope. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It was
counter.
the birth of gangster rap, and with that came the use in a we're going to reclaim it kind of a way of the N-word. It's not something I personally care to throw around. It doesn't bother me, again, because of what it points to. I know if somebody uses that, I know you're not talking to me, so go ahead and step with it. But it's one of those things, right? It becomes more culturally acceptable because it's in the radio. It's played all the time. We hear people interacting and calling each other that all the time. But then somebody else from outside of the community maybe brings that word up and it elicits an entirely different feeling, right? I'm not saying we're not talking right or wrong. That's just what it is. So it's one of those really weird things. You can hear it ad nauseum on the radio over here. You can read it in Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. You can write a book report on it, this, that, and the next. But the guy looking at you with that cross look in his eyes and that little bit of a snarl in his lip, when he says it, it's game time, dude. Like, we're fighting. Like,
You know what, Jay? Sorry, go ahead.
No, all you, Mark or Max. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would do the reverse on this one with you, Jay, because you're right. I grew up in LA during the 80s. I was born in 81. My family came from Argentina when I was 5 months old, so I was raised in Inglewood. However, hip-hop is a culture, a music and culture, right? So when the 90s hip-hop came around, it's the communications, right? It's the habits. However, I was listening to music like AC Alone or Most Def, Gangstar. These musicians I was listening to weren't promoting violence to me, but it was more poetic. It was culture. It was life.
You were listening to conscious rap. There's a difference.
Right. Yeah. But however,
I'm not mad at you. That's good music.
Yeah, no. And Tupac said it, right? I ain't mad at you.
Absolutely.
But when I came back from the service, I had a whole new perception of life. I was no longer that little kid.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back, all my friends and my family think I came back crazy. No, I came back a man. And I came back exposed to violence and death. And when I came back stateside, NWA, Dr. Dre, the gangster thing, all that was moving up. However, I feel that in today's culture, because I just finished probation last August, and I've been in and out of county jails in California and pretty much every county in Florida because of my stupid decisions. But I'll never take that back because I learned culture and communications. Like you were saying, the N-word. I have a lot of friends that are Black, and I love that culture, man. I love that history. I love Black History Month. It's one of my favorites, February. I know a lot about it because I joined the service because I wanted to stop oppression. I wanted to go out there and try to save the people that are being bullied by the ideologies of people who are using religion to run the masses, but that's for another topic. However, communicating with people, whether it's through the media, I chose to shut off the media. I chose to shut off the politics, and I would never talk to my friends about politics or religion because I will love you for who you are, whether you're gay, whether you're Black, white, Asian. I don't care what who you are. What I care about.
No Hispanics though, huh?
Oh, none of that.
Hispanics. No, not even that. But what I care about. Straight
What about
up,
Irish
really,
people?
What I care about. Hey, everybody. Hispanics, Indians, Afghans, and Iraqis.
Well, I mean, you were
don't care
listing
where
them,
you're
bro.
from.
So we had to make.
Yeah, I know. I should.
Okay.
And that's there's language, right? That was a good example.
Language.
And language could be misinterpreted. And look how fast it got twisted, man.
See?
You straight just put me on a reverse Kimura and almost made me tap out. Come on, my guy. Verbal jujitsu is what this is.
I
What were
don't
you
know.
before we get too far down that rabbit hole again? What were you going to chime in with, Chris? Do you remember?
Well, yeah. Well, I want to rewind. Okay. I remember there was two things, but I want to rewind
I brought up the
chrono-
gangster rap, hip hop, all that stuff.
chronologically. As far as like there were two things, but the first thing was, I wanted to rewind to the gay thing, and that's
Sure.
just a small
Absolutely.
example of a bigger principle. And this might, I don't I don't want to come off like an asshole here, and this might be a little bit edgy, but it is a legitimate question. Like, so I know what you're
Lord
talking
Chris.
about. I know what you're talking about in terms of like, if you say if you call your buddy gay or whatever, like in jest, right?
Mhm.
It has a very specific use, and it has nothing to do, generally speaking, with the sexual orientation of somebody, right? It's just like,
Correct.
hey, this is the worst thing that I can call you just to poke fun, right? I know you're not gay, but whatever. So, but the question is like, what responsibility does the individual person have to adhere to the societal rules or the norms as they continue and evolve over the course of your life? Because before, not too long ago, calling somebody gay was like, whatever, who cares, right?
Mhm.
But now it's kind of a bigger issue because people in that community have obviously struggled, of course, right? And they take that as almost like bearing a flag to say,
Before you bury yourself there, let me answer that question because you're getting deeper and deeper. To answer that as specifically as I can, my answer, and if you guys want to chime in, please feel free. To the extent that shift in society is a variable, I think your participation in society relates directly, or it'll correlate directly. Meaning, if you really like using that word, you can decide to participate less in society.
yeah,
But
no,
it's
I
ultimately
agree.
that's the quid pro quo. Honestly, just like you have the right and freedom to walk around and call anybody you want the N-word, but you might get punched in the mouth.
Of course.
Or shot.
Or and that's just what it is. So I don't disagree with anything you said. I don't think it's an obligation. I don't think it's right. So this becomes, now we're going back to like personal rights, and if we're trying to abstain from the political side of things, I personally believe that everything that I believe and am willing to share with everybody stops like right here where my bubble ends. And in that, I won't push it any further unless it's asked. I don't want to force you to do anything. I don't want to force anybody to do anything, just like I don't want you to come over here and tell me a damn thing that I need to be doing unless I ask. Right? You got to be invited into the house. You're not going to just come kicking my door down. And I have that mutual respect. So in that, and I'm not saying this politically, in that libertarian kind of a mindset, you do you, I'll do me, we'll meet in the middle and help each other out kind of a thing. I think that your obligation ends to for lack of a better term, coddle some people's feelings. Okay. Your obligation ends where your desire to participate in society intersects.
And I agree. Of course, anybody has the right to say anything, but there's always going to be consequences.
Sure.
Of course.
Absolutely.
My only issue is that it just seems to me lately that it's used as an excuse
It's a weapon.
to exclude people from society,
It's-
even if it's not necessarily justified.
It's a broadsword at this point. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a broadsword, and it swings multiple directions. And I don't think people realize that. I'm not saying like go be a hermit because you're like, but the thing is, like, in terms of personal development, and that's ultimately what the goal is here, right? We're developing as humans. I can't say that you are going to be better off by not developing resilience, by not developing thick skin when you hear words that you don't like. I can also, with respect, say that I'm not going to go out of my way to call you nasty things because I'm either a jerk or because I want to be the one to help you directly get that thick skin. I'd rather personally be the guy that's like, hey, let's teach you some coping skills and help you develop a little bit of mental fortitude so these things don't bother you as much, rather than, let's file legislation that'll throw people in jail for saying words we don't like.
Yeah, because I don't want to live in that society.
Nobody does.
Well,
the
Sometimes we
good
gotta
news is,
fit it.
the good news is nobody actually gets to, except for the people at the very top. So even the ones that are pointing and screaming and going, they'll be right next to you in the gulag.
So
Go
Jay,
Byron.
when I
Go
approached
Byron.
you,
mhm.
I approached you recently with ideas I have and why I want to volunteer my time to talk to you guys and do more and just do this wonderful Zoom video that we have, because this is actually the most intelligent conversation I had with humans in a long time.
That's the whole point.
And
brother.
I as a veteran of combat, and I didn't go to combat, I didn't shoot nobody, but I was over there and I got to see some people, right? We liberated a lot of women and children in Afghanistan. A lot of people say we lost that war, but a lot of people were actually rescued, man. Like 20 years, little girls were probably like 5 years old, and now that they're in their 20s, I was kind of, the little bit of media I would pay attention to is positive media, and it's hearing that, hey, these women got their college degree. We weren't trying to convert them to any different religion. It was just taking the ideology of the bad people to say it for the better good. So what my vision is that what I like to get together with more men and women like you guys and everybody. The other day at a gas station by the dojo, I saw a guy with a rainbow flag and he was very proud, a gay man. And I talked to him and I said, hey, can I talk to you real quick, bro? I got a vision, man. And I'm not prejudiced. I'm not racist. I'm not homophobic. I got a lot of friends that are gay. I got a lot of friends that are different races, like I mentioned before, and I went on the list. The rainbow flag is equality. It has nothing to do with just like one thing. It's just an equality flag. It's on the language and an image.
Let me jump
I
in
learned
right
this-
there, because this is a really good, actually a really good example. I'm totally following along with everything you're saying, but you got to realize here, being on the other end of that, if you approached me and we're talking language, right? And you went up and you were like, hey, I'm not gay. I don't hate people. I got gay friends. I know black people, blah, 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 blah. The first thing I'm going to do is be like, this guy is clearly up to something. He's clearly trying to disarm me for fucking some reason. And he's clearly got some kind of anti-gay, anti-black agenda. Because why the fuck else? I'm not going to walk up to you and say, hey, I'm a happy-go-lucky, normal, straight guy. How are you? Like, nobody fucking says that. Well, so why are you gonna come up and say the opposite? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's
That's like that. It's like that shit when somebody's like, I'm not racist, but inevitably, whatever comes after that is some racist shit.
I wanted to speak on what you were talking about with the whole gangster rap thing and the use of certain words, which I feel like this question was made for me and my lifestyle up until my mid-20s or something like that.
Sure.
The same thing, like what Max has said, and basically what you just brought up as he was speaking about it. It's I have black friends, like same deal. Like you have to kind of throw that out there to be like, hey, nothing's coming that's gonna piss you off. I'm not trying to piss anyone off. But like when I was
not to be racist, but
well, no, you're right about the disarming.
No,
I'm getting it.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about for sure.
But what I was thinking as well, I knew I had to answer this question for sure. But even when Max was saying he was listening to conscious rap, you can even look at it nowadays. If I listen to Gucci Mane, I know what I'm gonna get. Mm-hmm. If I listen to J. Cole or somebody like that, this is newer artists, I'm still gonna get the use of that word, even though it's conscious and political and stuff like that. But growing up, that word was also thrown around as gay. I mean, I didn't grow up in the hood or nothing like that. I was lower middle class, but I grew up in this area, not in a great area like Regency and Congress, you know, so it wasn't as much as a melting pot as other areas. There wasn't as many, you know, black kids running around. It was mostly Spanish and white, but that word was thrown around a lot.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I never got checked on it by anybody, but I did use it. You know what I mean? I didn't use it in a derogatory term. That's just, it was the same way of saying, bruh, dude, you know, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize at the time, not everything was so PC, brought to the light, stuff like that. But as I got older, you know, I started to realize, like you said, I'm probably getting a sideways look from somebody. And you know what? I'm never going to understand from that aspect of, you know, I'm someone overhears me saying that, who's this crackerjack looking motherfucker saying that right now, thinking he can get across, you know, and, you know, you'll always get like I'll even say it too. Like, it's like, you always get a white person. Oh, well, the Irish were, you know, they had their time when they went, you know, were slaves too down that path. I'm like, no, bro, it's not the same, because there wasn't a language of, I don't even know what to say on that. Everyone's been oppressed, but that shit's different, bro. And I'm never gonna understand it. You know, I had gold teeth, the whole 9 yards, bro. But I started to realize it later in life, like, that shit's gonna rub people the wrong way, bro, whether you mean to have it like that or not. You know what I'm saying?
And it's funny because, like, the if you've never heard the term, that the Overton window, like the looking glass that we kind of view society through, it shifts. It kind of always shifts, and I guess politically you could say towards the left, but it continues in one direction. Like, we oversaturate. Like, we'll start with the word, the previous F word that we brought up before. Back then, it when there was gay bashing happening, it started off as you're a homosexual, I want to hurt you, right? Which is where probably some of that pain identity comes from for people that are actually homosexual. Same thing with the N word with black people, right? But that Overton window shifts so much, we pollute it into society so much that 2 generations later, you and me are in locker rooms calling our friends fags.
Mhm.
Growing up, calling friends niggers and all this, that, and the next thing, and it's not a big deal, right? Because it's become so culturally accepted, because it's just pushed that the first generation goes, not my thing, but I'll let it slide. The next generation's like, well, mom and pops let it slide, must not be that big a deal. But the generation after that, it's fucking Wild West, baby, whatever. So now we're kind of seeing the overcorrection, I think, from that. It's good perspective, man. Good points.
I like to
Hold on a sec, Max. We got 3 other people that haven't talked yet.
Oh,
you
yeah,
get
please.
long-winded, brother. Let me keep you on the chain.
Hell yeah, I
keep you
do.
on the leash
Yep.
for a minute. Does
Please
anybody
do.
else want to jump in? That's okay. All right, send it, brother. Go ahead, Max.
I really want to change the world, man. I really want all this violence and racism to stop, and all this discrimination just to stop today, man. I wish I could do that in a snap of a finger, and I can't. And that's why I approached all you guys, and that's why I'm part of this group right now. And I'm glad we're having this topic about language, because if this is going to go on YouTube, then I hope someone could hear this.
Oh,
There's
sure.
influencers out there.
Absolutely.
I listen to Yella Beezy. I listen to the music, right? J. Cole, all those guys, they're influencers. And the jits these days, the kids these days, they look up to these men. They look up to the OGs in the streets, because hood is hood. Culture is culture. People don't understand culture. Denzel, I think, was the one that said it. He couldn't direct the movie Schindler's List because it's a cultural thing. And that's something that society should learn about culture, right? And culture with language and communication, it's all going to put in together. I'm recruiting men like you, Jay, or Tim, or Chris, or people who are willing to at least listen to understand, not listen to answer. Because great men have came out to try to fight for freedom of culture, and they've been killed. Because where there is good, there is bad, I've learned.
Absolutely. So I can't we can talk on that specific little pool forever, right? There's a lot of history there, especially with our country when it comes to the race specifically. But I kind of want to use the hip hop thing as a segue into another part that I really wanted to get to in terms of the topic at hand with language. And that's kind of bridging over to the little bit of the woo-woo section here. But stay with me for a second. You guys are all familiar with spells, like incantations, that kind of stuff, right? You say the shit over and over and over again and it has some type of effect, essentially,
Mantra,
right?
yeah.
A mantra, exactly. A newer version of that would be something like a mantra. You say it over and over, it has a physiological effect, exactly. If you, now let's blank slate this, we're doing a little thought experiment, okay? If you are a person of color, okay, and again, I'm using the 90s hip hop reference as a bridge into the next part of this topic, okay? If you are a person of color growing up listening to hip hop music, okay, the whole time, culturally, your friends and family, neighborhood buddies, the music that you listen to, TV shows, everything around you reinforces N-word, 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 N-word. You refer to each other, yourself, N-word, N-word, N-word. When you learn the historical context of what that word actually means, and a lot of your internal monologue assigns you to the role of N-word in your mind, what kind of correlation or shift do you think happens in the development of said person? Do you think they're going to grow up to be a Rhodes Scholar or a classically trained cellist? Most of the time, exceptional people can transcend their environment, but we're talking about generalities here, okay? You guys have been on Twitter. You guys have seen that most people aren't super bright, which is why there's not a ton of us in this meeting right now. It's easier to just consume nonsense and not think, right? So think about that for a second. Somewhat blank slate. We can argue that maybe environment is, anywhere from 20 to 90% of the outcome, but there's got to be some wiggle room in there, right? Because some people do transcend their environment. If I, from a young age, plant into your head, you are this N-word culturally, your friends identify you as such, everybody knows you as such, and then you come to learn the deficit that word actually has societally to other people, how much more difficult do you think it is to sociologically and mentally break those constraints from all the years of mental training you've given yourself to then now have to start fighting that battle all over again to break that habit and go, you know what, maybe I'm not this that I thought I've been this entire time. Maybe I'm something entirely different. Now, again, I use that as an example, but when we talk about where I really kind of wanted to go with this, that self-talk, the internal dialogue, right? The things that we say to ourselves, the things that our parents say to us when we're really young that kind of bounce around in there that we never really let go of, the things teachers say when we're really young, at those years that were really in our formative years when our brains are sponges, all the way through adolescence and your younger years, even as a young adult. Those things that are constantly bouncing around in your head, I guarantee you can probably figure out 3 or 4 of them that have been there 10 plus years that you're familiar with, that you've been hearing over and over and over again. Now think to that same example, how many of those things were put there by society, other influences and stuff like that? How many of those things have you had to transcend just based on the fact that they were placed in there through language?
I can kind of relate in a sense, like, oh yeah, I'm just a short-tempered white trash. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So how
Kyle, if you will.
I get, yeah,
No offense, Kyle Watts.
I'm a way better person than Kyle Watts. But the thing is like, how am I going to react to the situation? How does society think I'm going to react or live out my life or a day by day thing? It's just like everyone thinks of me as this way. So why the hell am I even going to try? Or I'm just going to However they
Because at
want.
that point, and I'm glad you said it that way, because at that point, that's exactly the line I wanted to make there. At that point, we've accepted it, right? Because it's been reinforced everywhere, 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 everywhere. We're hearing it everywhere. It's in the music, it's our teachers, it's our parents, it's on the TV, it's everywhere. We're hearing it. You're white trash, you're not going to amount to nothing.
Mhm.
Eventually you start drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And that fucking uphill battle to come back out of that pit is even just triple the amount of work, man. We give ourselves even more work to do by absorbing this negative language and not running it through that same filter. Again, I want to touch back, and I want you guys to chime in too. That same filter that we run those external comments through, right? If I call Chris, I'm like, man, them shoes are gay, you fag. He's going to run that through a filter. It's not going to affect his day. He just giggle smiled at me. It's not going to affect him at all, right? But on the inside, if he says to himself, you're going to fail when you try this sales call tomorrow, or you're not going to fucking make your mortgage next week. We fucking listen. We don't run it through the same filter. Why is that?
Because it's realistic. It's realistically dangerous.
Is it? It's
I don't know.
realistic because we've given credence to that voice. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here, right? If that voice inside here, it's just another voice, right? If it's saying you're going to fail, you're going to fuck this haircut up tomorrow, there's no evidence to suggest that you're going to fuck that haircut up, right? But we give it credence. We believe it. We're like, oof, I might have to double down because I might fuck this cut up tomorrow. But just because that voice in our head said something, we don't run it through the same bullshit filter.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not gay. I know my shoes aren't gay, right? So I can run that through the bullshit filter and it just doesn't suss out. It's just like, okay, whatever, bulletproof. But if I say it, your shoes are gay, and I say that shit in here, in the mirror before I go out the door, what do you think I'm gonna be thinking about the whole time I'm out? Man, I hope nobody's looking at these gay ass shoes I got on, right? Like it's that shit, dude. We don't run it through the same bullshit filter is the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, like you might subconsciously manifest it.
And Jay, David Goggins says it the best in his, I don't know if you guys read his book, Can't Hurt Me. I read it.
Great
and
book.
David Goggins, man, like he says, the most important conversation we'll ever have is with ourselves. And you just hit it on nailed it on the head right there, Jay, because our conscious mind is very important. My mentor, he's a behavioral scientist. He picked me up in Veterans Court, and I didn't know he was a behavioral scientist. I just knew the man was in the Navy. However, he started helping me with my self-conscious mind. And I opened up my big mouth. I should have never used these words talking about language. I told him I love to read. He's like, what do you like to read, Max? I said, I like to read Dean Koontz and Stephen King. And he goes, Max, those aren't books. He goes, let me think about a book and I'll get you back. Well, anyways, he taught me patience. It took about 6 months. He finally gave me a book, Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens. I started it was difficult. It was a challenge to retrain my thought process. I looked at myself as a not good enough, criminal, drunk. I mean, everything my mind created, like you were saying, through my years. But the diet, mine was the same diet if I want to stay healthy, right? We have to eat certain foods and exercise and run to stay physically healthy. This man was able to help me retrain that thought process just by clearing out that junk that life has taught me, that we're talking about right now. The culture we grew up in, and each one is different. Tim said middle class, and Jay, you in the locker rooms, and me, I grew up in Inglewood, but it wasn't like you. Like I didn't really mention most of it. I didn't grow up watching the gangs. No, I didn't see much violence there. I grew up in a good family. I grew up in a good society, but my mind, right? The more I grew up, the more I was created to be who I was. And today, I would like to one day help others the same way my mentor has helped me by reclassifying how we're thinking. And that's where I need to start. At least for me, that's where I need to start, man. Like right up here. Because if I could clear this out and be positive, then it's good to go.
That self-talk is key. If you think about operating systems, we think about how programs run. Look at how AI is developed. All this stuff operates on lines of code. It's a progressive code. It's just down the code, up, down the code, right? And when there's errors in the code or there's processing errors, things start getting gummed up. Every time, and you've said it, you've all kind of said it in different ways. When these things come up in our head, I thought I was this, I thought this, I thought that. It's because that little dickhead of a voice that's in our head that's always chiming up to insert doubt at the last minute is poking his little head up and being like, no, man, fuck you. Like, he's just popping up in there and kind of being a dick and generally stirring the turd, right? We all kind of get that aspect of it. But what we don't often understand is that we don't have to listen to it. We can separate from it. We can ultimately realize that if it's not supporting us, most of the time it's probably full of crap, unless it's like a fight or flight response. You know what I mean? It can be as simple as filtering it through the BS-ometer or BS-ometer again. You know what I mean? Like, all right, well, this is like 90% bullshit because there's no evidence to support it. Prime example for me, training today. I went and did a leg lock class in a position that as a black belt, I should probably be a little bit more versed in than I am. Rather than, fake my way through it and use my ego and the voice in my head's like, no, fuck that. No. A 17-year-old kid tapped me out today with a leg lock because I decided I was going to learn and be humble and accept what he could teach me because he's way more knowledgeable than me in the leg lock game. So I entered into it accepting that I'm going to play leg entanglements and learn, and was able to tell that voice, chill the fuck out for a sec. Doesn't matter how old he is or what belt he has. He knows more than you. There's no evidence to support any of the shit that you're trying to get me to do right now, which is like, crush this motherfucker's face, snap his shit. He ain't going to tell you nothing. There's no evidence to support any of that. I've already decided when I got here that I'm here to learn and get better. So you're going to pipe down until I need you. So that's what I told the voice. And then I go out and I do what I need to do. So these types of things, while we're writing those levels of programming throughout the day, right? Those little things that we're saying on my way to the gym. Oh, this is going to suck. I'm on my way to the front door. And man, every time I fucking get up on Tuesday morning, my back hurts. It fucking rains and I never sell anything. God damn it. I know the wife didn't fucking fill the car up last night and it's going to make me late for work today. And I didn't eat breakfast and blah, blah, blah. We're constantly writing programming for the day. So when we have to check out from here, when we're in the zone and we're making decisions and we're doing the right thing, when we have to do that little brief checkout, right? When we leave for a second, we go into autopilot. What do you think the system is running off of? It's running off the programming you fucking wrote all day. It's got no other choice. It's running off the program you wrote. So when you decide, hey, I'm going to wake up, my coffee's going to taste like crap, I'm going to have a headache, and I'm going to go to work and not be productive today, more than likely, because you're not really excited about what you're doing and you check out anyway, what do you think is going to happen?
You're going to have that issue.
You're going to follow the program. Jeff chiming in. What's up, baby?
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally am hearing you there, and I totally agree with everything you're saying. For example, when I was a kid, I was told, hey, you know what? You're going to be a ditch digger. You're going to amount to nothing. And later on, it actually affected me growing up to where I got worse in school and got to a point where I didn't try till I finally got into a better, how you can say it, influenced into a better path, and finally got my butt in gear with things. And it really does make a difference. And for example, when you say, tomorrow I'm going to have a good day, or you're not going to think about the negatives. So for me in sales, if I think, oh, geez, man, I haven't sold anything, or man, I'm doing horrible these past few weeks and nobody's wanting to buy right now. And if I go in tomorrow thinking that attitude, guess what? They're probably not going to buy, because I'm already like you said, I've already got that in my head that these people aren't even going to buy and stuff like that. So like you said, programming your head there, programming your mind and stuff really can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And if you guys aren't, I know Kyle's with his baby, so he keyed in on the chat there. But he and I had a conversation earlier in the week, and he brought that back up. He said, your inner voice knows exactly what to say. It's it's got years of intel, guys. It's got years and years of intel on exactly how to motivate you to action, positive or negative. It knows all the deep secrets. It knows the ways to twist the knife most effectively. I guarantee, without you guys even having to ask or to chime in, I guarantee you have said to yourself significantly more damaging and nasty things than anybody's ever said to you externally.
And now I want to touch on that. So I know logically,
Mm-hmm.
no emotion taking out everything. Like the positive speak is the best way to go, right? But intuitively, emotionally, there's something about being, and I don't want to say like perfect, but like the ideal environment mentally. There's something about like running at that speed or that wavelength all the time is like icky to me.
How
I
so?
don't like I have like an aversion to it.
How so?
And maybe this is a cope, maybe it's a justification, but
Well,
I
I
feel
mean,
like
I think
the
we obviously know it definitely is, but I'd still would like to talk about your specific aversion. But yeah, go ahead.
well I just say the cope is positive. Seeing the contrast between the negative and the positive allows me to know what direction to go in, and it's almost like a balance thing. Like I can't be perfect 100% of the time, and it's almost like it takes too much effort, right? And I guess maybe that's the icky thing of it.
I
But
would.
also like
I'm sorry.
it's almost like I don't want to be too good. I don't want to be so much better than everybody else that I'm like up here
I would
and
encourage
preaching,
you
you
to
know?
lose most of those concepts within what I'm talking about. And here's what I mean. To get to this place of, and I'm not talking from on some mountaintop on high with tablets. This is something I do every day. It's a constant refinement process. It's like training. It's anything else. It's like doing your dry fire reps. It's fucking training. You have to put in the work. This is not like, oh, I've done it and I'm done and I'm good and I've achieved it and here I am. It doesn't work that way. But I would encourage you to dissolve, and it's lofty. Okay, stick with me here. I would encourage you to dissolve the identity of I am good, I am bad. When I do this, I am good. By doing this, I will be better than people. Not what it's about at all. And that place of holier than thou or operating at a high clip with a high energy input for a high yield is entirely false. Believe it or not, it takes you significantly more energy to hold on and stir over that negative shit than it does to just sit and be calm and breathe and be present in a room with your kids and your wife and not be thinking about all the bullshit tumbling around up here.
That's what I struggle with right there.
It's a process. It's a process. So think about this. Now we're talking brain power. We can all agree. Let me ask you this. We don't have to get into whether or not you believe in telekinesis or remote viewing or any of that shit, okay? But let me ask you this. Has anybody ever had the experience where you've thought about somebody and they called or texted you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had it several times. We can agree there is something to the power that this thing has in terms of generating and or interpreting our reality. Yes? At least to some extent, whether how much you want to agree to it doesn't really matter. We can all agree that it's got something to do with something in terms of processing whatever the hell's going on around here, right? If that's the case, and that is a real thing, we have to give it a little bit of credence and a little bit of acknowledgement too. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm in a dark room, ruminating, thinking, besides my body processes consuming calories, that brain power is actually, it consumes energy. There's an actual process happening with neurons firing, blood flow to the brain. There's a physical process that's happening, as well as the mental, the spiritual, I guess, process, where we're actually getting visions and seeing things and hearing things inside of our brain within these thoughts, right? You could probably watch a whole movie or play a whole rap song or whatever you want to in your brain, right? You know the lyrics, you know the melody, you know it all. It's all in there. That energy is real. Okay. That's real energy that we're using. So if we were to take and just filter off, let's say 10% of that brain energy, okay, 10% of the brain energy that normally goes to us sitting around and stewing and thinking negative thoughts. Tomorrow's going to suck. I really fucked this up. I'm the worst at this. Every time this happens, I get anxious. I'm failing at this, that, or the next. If we take 10% of that time when we catch the end of those thoughts and realize, fuck, I'm doing it again, and just try and shift it to, I've done things I wasn't proud of before, but I'm improving. I've taken conscious effort and steps to be better. Tomorrow is going to be better than the day before because I've taken steps to make it better. I'm doing things to actively improve my business and my health and my mindset. 10% of that brain energy and invest it onto the good side and see the fucking difference it makes in the next day. Just try it. Just try it. Think, because again, it's energy, right? It doesn't seem like it's costing us much of anything, like you said. And the daunting task of being perfect all the time seems like it's this big lumbering deal. But when we can get to the point of just acknowledging what our thoughts actually are, recognizing when that voice is just being a condescending little prick, because, like you said, Chris, you've already said you've got the mentality upstairs to want to just jerk the wheel the other direction because it feels good. That little condescending jerk off sometimes has to be put in check, and we do that from that place of kind of just being neutral and saying, hey, okay, you're going to sit over there for a second, and this brain power, this energy is going to be devoted towards something good, whether it's in my immediate area, like my family, my wife, my kids, a project I'm working on, or reflected back inside in a positive way, what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do later tonight. Divert 10% of that, then 15, then 20, then 25, then 30. The next thing you know, it's 50. And hopefully we get closer and closer to that mark of 100% of that internal energy simply just being shifted from dark and crappy to not so bad, or maybe even positive. You know what I'm saying? So to me, with that long-winded explanation, it's more of a transmutation of energy than a requirement of adding anything else.
Is the desired end state perfection? If you go to
No.
100%.
No.
So just the journey.
Getting better is the desired. And
Is that where the 40% rule comes in?
Basically, yeah. Think about it like this again, and this is mentality, right? If there's an end, if there's a finish line, it implies that there's a point where you're done improving.
Yeah.
You're a practical shooter. Is there a point where you can stop getting better, Chris?
No, I mean, there's a point where you can be theoretically better than everybody else, but certainly not.
You could still
perfect.
Get better. Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
You could still, and you could at a certain point of refinement, maybe even reset the bar for what perfection actually means in a specific set or category, right? So there's no limit unless you set a finish line. So with that mentality, no, there is no goal so much as this is the path we're on to constantly refine, constantly be getting better at all times. At all times.
I think I said that the other day I was recording to try to get some positive affirmations out there for people that need some motivation, let's just say, right? Like what you're saying right now. The 40% rule, and why I keep going back to that book, right? The Can't Hurt Me book with David Goggins is I've taken that practice and that's what I was saying. But I've taken the 40% rule, and I've when I hit to the point where I'm about to like get tired or want to quit, and the mind starts to lie to me, like, "Hey, man, you can't do this or you can't do that." I've actually put it into action, and I've tried to go not full sprint, but a little bit more. Like, let's just say a workout. I did 15 minutes on the treadmill. And 20 minutes was going to be too much for me. But that's where I clicked in that 40% rule. And I said, you know what? I'm at 15. Let's go to 20. But I like to implement that with life. And you said something that struck me, Jay, was when people put limits. I feel that if I put a limit, I failed. You know, I have this vision that we could fundraise, like an example, fundraise, right? I'm a sales kind of guy. I've never had $1 million in my life. I've never even had 50,000 bucks. I've never even had 1,000, or I've had 1,000, but see where I'm going at. What I'm trying to do now is not put a limit. I don't want to say that 50,000 is all I'm going to make in 4 years. I just want to just keep going to see what my best will be tomorrow. Like Chris, you know, whatever, you're good at what you do, and you could always be better than what you are today, and you could keep climbing that mountain. The moment we stop climbing that mountain, and I've been telling my dad, he's an old man, my aunt, she's an old woman. They live my aunt's older than my dad. My dad's 65, my aunt's 75. My aunt is mentally here, and my dad is more gaunt, like elderly. My aunt still works. My dad retired. And this is where I'm going with this mentality thing. The limit. The moment we stop climbing that mountain or achieving a certain goal, and we just stop, from what I'm witnessing, that's when we fail as humans. I might be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing with my own perception.
Only limitations we have are the ones we set, man. You can go ahead and jump in there, Chris. I'm going to get ready to share a screen here for you guys as well.
I was really interested after reading Goggins and book and all that, and all the like Navy SEAL stuff. I mean, I think it's kind of cliche, but you know, they always say, like, when you think you're done, you're really not. You know, and it's more physical. Well, the challenges within that environment are physical, but it's more mental than anything else. And it's hard for me to grasp, because I feel like I've done some physically challenging things in my life, and it's like you certainly get to a certain point where it's like, man, I don't know. Like in jiu-jitsu, for instance, like I've been in situations where, you know, the pressure has been so much, and maybe it's not even the pressure, but just my heart rate is so high and I don't know how to deal with the situation, that I'm like, I want to get out of this because this is just so uncomfortable. My heart rate is so high, or whatever the case is.
Hey, real
And
quick, don't lose your train of thought, but that's perfect. What's happening in your head when that happens?
panic.
Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm gonna die. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah.
Right? But your body physiologically, more often than not, responds, right? Fuck, he's right. We are dying. Panic, panic, panic. And it often gets worse, and our breath gets tighter, and our heart rate goes up even further.
Right.
I didn't mean to cut
it,
you off,
it doesn't know how to deal.
That's exactly what's happening, right? It's in this weird spot where everything's starting to accelerate. Then it's like, oh fuck, we're hearing, we're gonna die. Your body's like, shit, we're gonna die, man.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off though. I want you to finish your
No, it's real. Even if it's not like literally real, it's real for you in the moment, for sure.
And that's where the reptilian side of the mind kicks in, right?
Yeah. But it's interesting having those visceral experiences and then hearing other people saying, that's like 5%, dude. You can keep going. And I'm like, it's just shocking,
right?
You know, to hear that.
Or you hear me when you come off the mat, and I'm like, why didn't you take that armbar? It was right there. You're like, well, fuck, I just literally gave everything I have. I'm dying.
Right.
Like, he didn't even choke you out when he took you back. What are you talking about? And I have this completely different peaceful perception of what happened, and you're breathing like, fuck, he literally just tried to take my life. What the fuck are you talking about, coach? It's a whole different world, right? Even though we both just saw the exact same thing. That's so awesome. I want to so this isn't mine, but I want to kind of go over this. I don't necessarily agree with all the exact percentages. Can you guys see the screen okay?
Yeah.
But the mixture, I think, is like spot on. The one that I really agree with the most, I think that luck is maybe like a 0.02%. I don't know if it's exactly a flat zero. Because, and again, I guess that's the definition of the word if we're getting back to words, but I think there's just more overall happening that we are a part of versus like this person is lucky and that person is unlucky. We just identify within ourselves so much that we kind of forget the fact that we're just in a giant game of electric football that's going on. But if you look at the breakdown, luck, authentic talents and skills, the belief in your own worthiness of success. What does that sound like to you guys? Sounds like fucking self-talk to me. What's going on up here? How worthy are you to actually achieve your goals? Right? There's nobody that's going to bestow that upon you. That starts up here, right? Healthy self-esteem kind of sounds like it's in the same bucket to me. The vision, how much have you actually put into your forethought, putting that picture in your mind so that we have an attainable goal to work for, right? That comes back into our, and we might get into some of this stuff, but our actualization, right? We visualize, we actualize. I'm literally manifesting. I don't like to use that word because it gets a little woo-woo-y, but I'm literally taking an idea from my head and essentially becoming an alchemist and turning thought energy into a physical form. I'm getting ready to open a martial arts academy. This is a 5-year vision I've had. Well, realistically, it's almost a 20-year vision, but the physical academy has been a 5-year vision that is coming into fruition over the last year. This is something that's real, that's tangible, that's come from here and is now a physical building, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about within the vision. Confidence in your abilities. Again, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but 3 of these things so far have been self-checks up here, okay? And resilience to failure. That is going to be one of the few that determines, or I'm sorry, that relies upon external stimulus, right? You've got to try and fail and get back up and do it again, and not be afraid, not be too tied up in the fact that we failed to take another crack at it. And I really think this breakdown is clutch. If you guys want to chime in at all, I'd be happy to hear what you think about it.
I would only dissent slightly, and maybe this is open to interpretation, but
That's what we're here for, baby.
the talents and skills. And so the reason I say that is because everybody walks into I don't want to say everything, but generally like without any talents. Without any skills, I would say.
Exactly. I think that's why they use both the words, but continue.
So I feel like attributing that large of a percentage to it somewhat belays your ability to say, hey, I might not have any talent here or any skills, but I can accumulate it through work.
To me, and I think you're dead on. And like I said before, the percentages I'm just kind of whatever on. But to me, that authentic talents and skills is more so, I interpret that as do the work.
Authentic. Okay, fair. Yeah.
That's how I take that as do the work. Part of it is do the fucking work. Yeah.
As
Part
opposed
of it
to
is
I'm just the goat. Like I just walk in here and I'm
and
the best
some
at
people
everything.
are like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Some
for
people
sure.
walk in and are phenomenal. But
Right.
I mean, you've all heard the colloquial term, the phrase before, right? Hard work beats talent every single time. If they're not mentally strong, if they don't have resistance to failure, if they don't have confidence, if they don't have the vision, if they don't have the self-esteem, all that talent isn't going to do jack shit for them if they're not willing to put the work in.
Time equity.
And do all of it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
My mentor always said the difference between an A and an F is the time equity. It's the time you invest in your studies. It's not about how, if we're dumb or not, it's just how much effort you're putting into it. And I'm gonna put that into practice this next semester. You know, I'm not that, and that's again, see, there you go. I almost said something negative about myself. I almost just said I'm not that smart.
Good catch. See, and this is how the process begins. Those tiny little moments when we see it and we catch it, we can start correcting. Good shit, brother. Very nice. Very nice. I'm going to slide to the next one here. So this is a quote from Marcus Aurelius that I really like. And there's a lot. If you guys have never read his book, Meditations, I highly recommend it. Obviously, it's from a different time. But if you can really get into the prose and the way it's written, there's a lot to be had and a lot to be digested within that book. But let me switch the view here so I can see that. Sorry. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. That's a big, profound chunk. Before I start waxing poetic, I'd like to toss that around and hear an interpretation, maybe even from some couple of you that haven't gotten to speak a whole lot. I know I talk a lot. What you guys think about that? What does that mean to you if you hear that quote?
Hello.
You're on.
Hi.
No, I'm kidding. Someone else talk.
Forcing myself to stay quiet. I'm practicing
okay.
patience right now.
I appreciate
Just
it.
if you have terrible thoughts, like you're just gonna think you're, a piece of garbage. You're not worth being happy. You're not worth a good life,
Yeah,
because it's just all negative.
absolutely. Think about this, guys. Let's make it. And obviously I used an old timey example here, right, with Marcus Aurelius. But think about what's actually being said there. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. What examples could I give you guys recently? It's a guy named Robin Williams. Sound familiar?
Yep.
Who's that?
Get out of here. But
Who
seriously,
was
right?
that?
The one of the happiest, most energetic, exactly, air quotes, most energetic, loved comedians out there, successful, all the buzzwords that you can put on it. And for whatever story you want to take, the man apparently took his life. And you probably have countless examples of that, right? You guys probably know, I'm sure you can name infinitely more celebrities that people are like, oh man, they had it made. Why? Oh man, that guy? What? Oh man. Well, why? Because they're not happy because of what's going on in here. The external is probably as good as it can be. Drugs and booze and girls or money or whatever you feel like you're into, whatever vices you feel like should make you happy, right? But ultimately up here, they're still in prison, they're in jail, they're under a boulder, to the point that it's not even worth living in this world of extravagance anymore. So conversely, at the same time, you see Sherpas living on the side of Everest doing guided tours in the freezing, conditions, and they're smiling. You see monks and Amish and people that live without electricity and without modern refinements, and wear the same clothes every day, and they're happy. They're like happy, not like faking happy, but like they're genuinely just like, yeah, I'm okay, I'm doing all right. And they still live, by their account, a good quality life. Now that word quality obviously is subject to change, but it's a fun thing to really think about, right? How can somebody with what we would perceive, at least from American values, with as being so little, be happier than somebody that we perceive, again, through our value system, as having it all, somebody that has it all, celebrity, whatever, you know what I mean? How can that person be happier than the one that's done it, the one that's achieved, the one that's had it all? It all starts with the mental process.
I feel
Is
that
it-
this is like the Achilles tendon, like the weakness of human society. And the reason I say this is I spent many long years in and out of jails and mental health facilities. And inside of the jails, men, we had to learn to be happy, because it's a horrible place. No matter where you go in the United States or in the world, jail is horrible. It's the prisoner in the mind. It's our mindset. I was telling my wife why I get so sad sometimes. And I'm not sad like depressed where I just want to go and cry all day. But when I spent my years in the streets, I watched people. And I seen, just by paying attention to people, I seen how sad they are. I don't see us. Usually when someone's happy internally in their thoughts, you can't hide that smile. You can't hide that light that comes in a human's face. And I think this is very powerful what you're sharing, Jay, because the happiness of our lives does depend on the quality of our thoughts. Because if we have negative thoughts that overpower the good, Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain, good
Goes on and
people
on.
out there.
Yep.
It goes on and on, and the list goes on.
Chris?
Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, easy. He said good people.
Oh,
I was gonna. So when you bring up like the Amish, for instance, or Sherpas or whatever, I wonder to what extent their happiness or their contentness, if you will, is attributed to them having a healthy mind state versus having far less external influences.
I think it's a
Because-
collective. I think it's all.
Yeah.
I think it's all. I
Of
really
course,
do.
I mean, but if you had to put like a percentage on it, you know what I mean? And
I don't know.
I'm kind of of the mindset that the external influences might be a larger percentage. I don't want
Sure.
to discount the mental stuff,
Absolutely.
but I think the external influences might make it easier to obtain the mental stuff.
Absolutely. I don't disagree, because I mean, they're not, let's be honest, they're not, you're not going to go to an Amish village and find him busting his daughter on TikTok, shaking her ass and cocaine in her bedroom.
Right.
I mean,
of course.
it's just what it is. We
Right.
can be
Amish
honest about that.
mafia.
But at the same time, we talked about the negative way that society can affect our minds coming up, right? They've essentially just kind of got the other side of that. There's benefits to kind of being isolated, but they also lose out on certain societal things that we get to
Right.
enjoy. But with that being said, still developing that fortitude, in my opinion, is going to make us more apt to transcend the negative societal influence and or tune in better to accept those positive societal influences. So maybe that Amish person would not survive as well in South Central, but that's okay, because the goal here is to put more goal-oriented, virtuous, like-minded people out there, so that maybe the next couple generations of people that do grow up in South Central have a couple of people in their neighborhood that think a little bit more similarly to the way we do. And maybe they can confide in that person and not go down a path that leads the wrong direction, right?
I agree 100% with that, Jay.
One brain at a time, baby.
Do you think because obviously, like when we look at people like the Amish, right? They're living in a different
Why are
time.
you picking on the Amish?
No,
I'm just kidding, dude. Go ahead.
I'm a little stuck on that, but it's
Well, it's
interesting.
okay.
So they're living in a different time, an earlier time, to a
Mhm.
certain degree, and they've specifically excluded modern advances in order to have a more an older culture, right? They feel it's better, and they might be right.
I think honestly, it's a cost benefit analysis for them. Culturally, it's not worth inviting all that stuff in, because they know it's going to pervert in their minds what they have.
It makes me wonder though, because there was certainly pain, different kinds of pain, in older parts of history that modern society has fixed for the most part. Having clean drinking water and food like readily available is the biggest one that comes to mind. So it makes me wonder. Yeah, power,
antibiotics, electricity,
right.
Absolutely.
So it makes me wonder, like, is our sadness, depression not operating at a high level, like just the cost of doing business almost in order to live in that better time? And do we have to sacrifice those things in order to progress as a society? And even just beyond antibiotics and stuff, I mean, there's still progress we have to make as a society. You know, if you take climate change, or traveling across the stars, or whatever we need to do next, like, is that just the cost of doing business?
I think necessity drives innovation, honestly.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're comfortable and fed and warm, we're soft, and we find more things to be upset about, and we spin out culturally because we have more time for our brains to ruminate on shit, because I'm not sitting in a tree waiting for an animal to come by so I can bleed it out and feed my family tonight. I have time to sit on this computer and think about things that happened last week, or things that happened in a meeting that I didn't get to attend, and then post about it and bitch about it. So I think you're definitely correct. There is a direct correlation, right? Because we're not occupied doing these other things, because we are so comfortable, that we have more time to ruminate on this stuff. I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying we have more time to pay attention to it. And I think that brings more of it to the forefront. Not that these issues wouldn't exist in other cultures or societies, but maybe they don't have time paying attention because they're fucking busy raising barns.
But they have different problems though, right?
Right?
Like,
absolutely.
So
this is starting to feel like a Sudoku. You guys ever play Sudoku? numbers.
Played
You gotta put
Sudoku.
the Sudoku. How do you say it?
Sudoku.
I don't know. Sudoku, I don't know how to pronounce it, but you guys know what I mean.
I got you, bro.
That fun puzzle math,
Fun
right? You got to put all this
puzzles.
stuff together.
Right there.
However, it came to mind like I like watching TED Talk. I watch a lot of TED Talk, and one day I would hope that I could maybe learn to speak like the people in TED Talk. Because we were talking about communications and language. These people, they start talking softer and they in tune you to what they're saying, and they're so intelligent with what they say. But I'm going to the TED Talk that fits with what this topic was that you were mentioning, Jay, and what Chris was saying. It was, this lady was talking about, why do some people give so much? Like myself, I have the personality, like I know you guys, but I don't know you that well. But I would definitely give you one of my organs if I know I would still live, but you really need it. And I don't care, you could have it. So this lady was trying to figure out, why do some people give everything they have and some people don't? So she had to study and go to the very bottom, the opposite, which is the psychopaths. And this is where I was thinking about that Sudoku game, or however you pronounce it, that game, because it starts easy. You might be able to put all the numbers together, but once you get to hard, you'll think you figured it all out. One little box. Defiant little box that's messed you all up and you got to start all over. That's how I'm interpreting our society as human race right now. It's no matter how much that we want to change and we want to learn about the mind, we're always going to have that opposite fighting back. And I think as society, and I'll end it right here because I'm yapping too much, I would like one day our group to expand to the world and try to find those individuals that willing to give everything they have, because our focus isn't selfish. Our focus is for the generations and generations and generations of our world that comes in the future. I'll leave it
Absolutely.
at that.
The whole point here is having conversations real time with each other that hopefully will spark conversations after the fact when people get to see this. So I appreciate you guys being a part of it. This next one and I'm just going to kind of plug right through here. We're getting a little long on the time too, but you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's another one from Marcus Aurelius. So it kind of goes back to that little electronic football metaphor that I used earlier, where we really start thinking about using that energy output in the most efficient way possible, right? I've mentioned before transmutation or alchemy or whatever, taking that negative mental energy and turning it into something else. This is one of those scenarios, right? Where if we, and this is another very lengthy, probably several conversations, but once we start to dissolve the sense of I as an individual, meaning my thought processes go from what's good for me to what's good, and it just stays there, not what's good for Jay, or not what's good for Chris, not what's good for Max, not what's good for Tim, not what's good for Raven, not what's good for Jeff, but just what's good, what's right. It ultimately allows us to kind of separate from that filter of everything that's going on around us is directed at or to or about us. So we can kind of start separating and seeing a little bit more of the fact that we're playing this role in the game of electronic football versus the fact that all these players on the field are directed and coming directly at us for some reason, and the game was designed to screw this particular player over. Does that make sense? That's kind of what this speaks to me when I interpret this quote, and that we can ultimately realize that those external events are just a happening, and that we have far more influence controlling our reaction to it and what's going on inside than we do with actually changing what's going on the outside.
Sounds vaguely communist.
And everybody gets to share the cheese.
Yep.
No, and we're talking about situationally, emotionally. Obviously, if I see a friend of mine's wife getting bludgeoned, we train people for that specific thing. By the way, check out ethereal.llc. Check out all of our YouTube. Check out our Instagram. You can see some of the training we do. Chris Kosman there is a fantastic firearms instructor if you want to book some privates with him. But we train for that stuff too, guys. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about the identification with, well, you know, and this is gonna segue into the next one, but you know, I heard Becky say something nasty the other day. Well, maybe Becky was talking about a TV show or another person that works in the office. Maybe it wasn't about you specifically, but we can go create a whole world and scenario where Becky just said something nasty about us, and now we got a million different reasons to crap on her, right? I could just as easily take that same external stimulus of Becky going, yeah, that bitch ain't shit, and shut it down in here, right? The external stimulus, the outside events did not change, but I changed what happened in here, got a completely different result. Now I can walk over and be like, oh, what are you guys talking about? And not feel any kind of way about it, get my coffee going about my day, instead of stewing, gripping my steering wheel, go home, kicking my dog, talking about how that bitch Becky was talking crap.
Don't touch that dog.
I wanted Chris to go back to the communist stuff.
I agree.
You
I
don't
agree.
have to
The
agree.
I agree ideologically. The
Sure.
only problem that I have is while the ideology is true, of course, objectively, the problem has been that in the past, and hopefully we can transcend this, but in the past, many have spoken in similar terms as a way to garner political power in order to subjugate other people.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that was their end goal.
And that's where personal autonomy and virtue come in, right? Like you said, this is a philosophical discussion. We're talking philosophy here, not action.
Right.
You're talking politics, real world external action, very different. That's why we train and do the stuff that we do, right? we want virtuous, well-intentioned people out there. So when it comes time to actually taking action, hopefully these types of discussions have them at least thinking their own thoughts, generating their own thought forms and patterns, and asking why questions and how questions, instead of just saying, yep, okay, and complying, which is where the nasty regimes and things I think you're alluding to are starting to come in. You know what I'm saying? Where we just go, oh, okay, I'm going to stay in my zone and not ask questions. That's not at all what I'm talking about. We're training better thought forms, hopefully, right? That's the ideal goal.
I like that. I just think like ideas are perfect, and
you want to flip a desk and
not.
yell tyranny. That's what you want to do.
I think ideas are perfect and humans are not.
Oh,
and unfortunately, sometimes imperfect humans get a hold of perfect ideas and use them as tools against other people.
That needs to be a shirt, by the way. If it's not
check this out and talk about that.
Ideas are perfect, humans are not.
Can you guys see this?
Power.
Rules of Power.
I can't really see it. It's the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah, good book.
That book is a weapon, and it shouldn't. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be handed down just with it to anybody. And unfortunately, in the negative side of the world, this book is used to manipulate people. However, I took this book. Like you guys are saying, bad people could turn good things and make them horrible. But the reason I got this book is that business vision that I was talking about, Jay, and I know, Chris, you guys heard me where I said, hey, man, I'm a little bummed out because I really want to help change the mental health and substance abuse industry. And I kind of think I have it figured out. Like, Jay, you said your vision, that you've been working on it for 5 years, but it was really more like 20, right? I've been working on this plan for 5 years, and I've been sitting around and watching people and observing, and that's really all I could have done. And I mingled to fit in, but I mingled with everybody. So I had to be like a Power Ranger, morph myself into different characters all the time to be able to fit in, so that people would listen. Because like the situation with the gas station, and I approached the guy, hey, I have friends who are gay. You're like, hey man, you're disarming him. I was. In society today, if I don't disarm, I'm not gonna get a ear to listen. And I had to find a way to have something to share with and compare with. Anyways, there I go rambling again. But I'll finish off with the 48 laws of power. The reason I picked it up, I gave it to a couple of good people who I feel would be a good fit to fit into our community to make a change in the world. Because the world does have bad people that turn good into negative things. And I think that well-read individuals as yourselves, you guys are very intelligent. And I can tell you guys read a lot of good literature. Your vocabulary is profound and actually pumps me up to want to learn more. And I thank you all for your time for having me in your group today.
Absolutely, brother. We appreciate you. So in Buddhism, I want to get to this next slide. There are some practices, for lack of exclusion, I'm just going to call this the path to self-mastery. Okay. We don't really need any of the religious context, but there's a lot of mental training within some of these monasteries and stuff on this universal path to self-mastery. And this image that I've got on the screen here is one of the common things that they share within these different schools of thought on this path to self-mastery. And these are called the 5 hindrances, if you've never seen these before. And Max, you've mentioned you watch TED Talks. There's a monk, I don't remember his name, but he's actually done like a whole hour-and-a-half TED Talk on these 5 hindrances. First one being sensory desire. Those kind of things are going to be the stuff that stimulates us in the physical form, right? Not necessarily, just the good things, right? Because I get physical chemical responses when I hug my daughter, and it's a good response. It feels good. I feel that love. It's a good thing, right? But those desirous feelings, like that extra bag of Cheetos, the 12th beer, sleeping with girls we shouldn't be sleeping with, that kind of stuff, the cocaine, the this, the that, the next, chasing the pony, all that nonsense, the external, it feels good, so I'm going to do it, right? That's the first of the 5 hindrances to self-mastery. The second one is ill will. And that's really simple. That's anger, wishing bad on other people, carrying hatred around, doing dirty shit, being mad, being grumpy all the time. That's one of those things. Chris is disinterested. It's one of those things that are gonna be a huge roadblock and helping us master, again, not the external world, but ourselves. And having better control of the external world, again, if you're asking me, starts with mastering your temple first, and then shining your light as bright as possible. Mastering doesn't, again, to your earlier point, Chris, I don't think, and I don't want you to associate mastery with perfection, 2 different things. Mastering Chris, in my opinion, is not the same thing as a universal standard of perfection. Okay. I like to delineate a big line there.
Yeah.
Okay. So ill will, anger would be the second. Okay. Sloth or torpor, laziness, procrastination, not getting off our asses, being comfortable. This is like a huge problem nationwide, right? We just talked about this on the last slide. Innovation goes to a halt. Why? Because we don't have to do stuff. We don't have to get better at hunting and sourcing food because we can just go to Publix. There's not a lot of people devoting brain power to that. I mean, there's think tanks, there's universities, that kind of stuff, obviously. But that sloth, that I'll do it tomorrow, or someone else will do it. That's how we get to that point you were talking about, Chris, right? Where we're all just in the food line waiting for our handout at the end of the day.
Addicting.
Ding, ding, ding. It's very addicting.
The most addicting drug out there, for sure.
Absolutely. And after that, we've got restlessness and worry. So that's, again, that's another internal state where we're constantly, oh, what's going to happen? Fuck. Okay. Well, and I know I've got lots of friends that in that state of anxiety, which is another word for that, right? Constantly anxious. Again, and we talked about this before, and it's kind of why I put this in this part of the presentation here, but we spent a lot of time on this before, where we talked about that brain power, right? If I'm restlessly worrying, churning, think about all that brain power that could be used to business strategy, right? Better self-talk, spending time with our kids. That's all brain power that we could be using for positive instead of sitting and churning about the worry. It's important to note possible flaws, to have backup plans, to correct, to have an outline. All this stuff's important. We have to analyze cost benefit analysis is a big part of anything that we do, right? We do business consulting with Aetherial as well. This is all very real stuff. We break down business plans. It's a whole thing, right? We have to be realistic about that stuff. But the line stops where action is no longer warranted, right? Once we can't do anything about it anymore, it transfers into worry. Okay. So going beyond that to the fifth one, where that worry essentially translates to and leads us down the negative path, the dark road, is number 5, self-doubt. So we churn that worry word over to the point where we're like, fuck, I can't do it. And then here comes Mr. Confidence Killer, chopping shins, kicking throats. It's a bad day, right? So self-doubt sneaks in and everything's off the rails. It becomes a very, 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 very nasty path that we add on top of the already difficult journey that the world has, just in terms of us refining and finding out what we're really about, right? So if we can eliminate these things, these hindrances, these speed bumps, it's going to help us along. Obviously, none of this is guaranteed, like I said. It's going to help us along that path to self-mastery, not self-perfection. And lastly, and we can discuss this one and then we'll probably wrap it up after this. If you guys have never read the book, it's, in my opinion, oh, this is a crappy slide. I'm going to read it off my phone. The book is written terribly. I don't find the guy to be a great author, but I love the message. I think the book is fantastic in what it teaches. And that's the 4 agreements. Let me get this pulled up here because I can't read the slide I gave you guys. Sorry about that. So first one is to be impeccable with your word. And again, I had to tie this one in just because we talked about language, right? Being impeccable with your word. To put it plain and simply, you don't lie, okay? We speak with integrity. You say only what you mean. I'll repeat that again. You say only what you mean. That doesn't mean in jest. That doesn't mean when I'm sitting talking with my friends and BSing and having a good time. If I'm openly trying to communicate, Max, you brought this up a couple times. We've talked about this the whole meeting, right? If I'm trying to convey the point, I'm trying to use the street signs verbally and point to the idea that I'm trying to take from my head and put into your head. I have to be impeccable with that word, okay? And with that, it's going to help me translate as honestly as I can what's in here to you and hopefully filter out as much of the nonsense as possible. And a same part of being impeccable with our word, excuse me, avoiding using your words to speak against yourself or gossip about others, okay? So again, touching on self-talk, negative self-talk, getting involved, talking crap about other people. So once again, being impeccable with your word, being honest with your word, speaking lovingly to yourself and about other people. Second of the 4 agreements is to not take anything personally. Again, this is, we're talking about the road to self-mastery, right? Don't take anything personally. We brought this up before, that bitch Becky at the water cooler that's talking. Maybe it wasn't about us. Maybe it's worth asking a follow-up question. Maybe it doesn't even matter. Maybe we're just going about our day, right? Don't take anything personally. Nothing anybody else does is because of you. I know that's a general statement, and Chris is already chirping up, but think about this for a sec, right? And I'm speaking vaguely. I'm not speaking in specifics. Most of the time, unless you've just gone out of your way to be a jerk, most of the time somebody has reacted poorly, said something crappy to you, given you a nasty look. You know, you say hi to them, they ignore you. What's so good about it when you say good day or whatever? It's because, you know, their wife said something cross to them. Their cereal had flies in it. Their kids were being dicks that morning. They got a ticket on the way to work. Whatever it is, it probably has nothing to do with you. They're just in a shitty mood from something else that happened, right? Not all the time, but a lot of the times. I think that's kind of what that's pointing towards for you. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Okay. So that's kind of the expansion he puts on that, not taking anything personally. The next one is not to make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. So it's really going hand in hand with that last thing. But if you don't take it personal, again, you're not making the assumption that it's about you. I can make assumptions about anything. Ask the question. I can assume you guys are all going to show up to the meeting, but if I don't send you guys meeting invites and I sit here like a turd with nobody in the meeting, guess what's going to happen? Most of you are probably just not going to show up. And if you do pop in and it's just me and Chris sitting here looking at each other, you might turn right back around, right? So rather than assume you guys are going to show, I'm sending meeting invites out and reminding you, okay? There's lots of stuff that we can avoid by not making assumptions. And last but not least, always do your best. This is one of the hardest ones to do, right? Always do your best. That doesn't mean I have to be at 100% all the time, okay? That means that if I'm at 65% that day, I'm giving you every bit of my 65%. Okay. Being at 100% all the time is unrealistic. So let's go ahead and toss that to the side. Doing your best means whatever you are most capable of, the best effort you can put forth at that moment is what you can give. Okay. Now, in reference to what I do with our martial arts training and our fighting, obviously the direct correlation is like cardio, fight training, that kind of stuff. By the end of the 10th round of me screaming in your face and putting fresh opponents on you, you're kind of done, right? Your top level of output is not the same as your top level of output when we first started. But I can still, as a coach, look and see if you are trying or not, right? So that trying your best doesn't mean 100% output across the board. It just means doing the best with what you got, giving it an honest effort. So again, I know I got a little long on there, and if you guys want to, you can see the general outline here on the screen. But if you want to talk about some, none, or all of the above, I'd like to hear your thoughts on these.
I can't really read them. They're pretty pixelated.
Okay. Just in terms of the actual words for the agreements, you don't need the synopsis, but the first one is to be impeccable with your word.
Oh
The
yeah, I
second,
can see.
yeah, okay. The second
I
one
thought-
is no, you don't need to read all the paragraph. Just what you guys think about the general topic.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's solid. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done.
Of course, right? That's why we talk about this being a constant path of refinement, right? None of this is ever done. There is no finish line. This is a thing that we hopefully agree to do on the regular and keep doing, and eventually it gets easier and easier and easier. Or we just continue to refine further, right? And eventually maybe one day, like Koss said, you'll just be this emergent light being that fucking shoots sub 0.2 of a second and can hit all day long, like whatever, it might happen. Or you might just live a really good full life and not be stressed out and have a loving family and, you know, enjoy yourself. Who knows? But somewhere on that spectrum is where I'd like to end up. I can tell you that. Not miserable and depressed and sad, where I see a lot of people going, where I have seen people end up that I've, you know, seen over the last 20 some odd years go down that road. I've seen more examples than I can give. And I think Max actually brought it up before, of that light, like physically, like seeing pictures of friends and stuff. The light's not in their eyes anymore, man. And it sounds weird, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or you can see, like, they had, you know, 5-10 years ago, there was a sparkle, there was a shimmer, there was like a glow to them, there was a buzz of life. And it just looks like, whether it's, I don't know, just stress or life or alcohol or drugs or whatever, they're just beat down. It's their body mechanics, it's the sunken eyes, that spark of life is just not there the same way. So
Dead eye.
go ahead.
Oh no, I said it's the dead eyes.
Yeah, the dead eyes. And it's people that I've known that didn't have them before. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
The
Chris,
mind
it's
could
all-
be a prison of its own.
Fuck yeah. You brought that up when you were talking about jail before. That's probably, the biggest hurdle for you guys to get over, I'd imagine.
Well, we all have our own hurdles, in life. And Charles Dickens, the book I read, The Tale of Two Cities, there's something very powerful that I'll never forget from that book. Besides the revolutionary and everything that was going on back then, it's that behind every closed door, there's a dark secret. Every residential neighborhood in the world, you might have a good family, but you never know what your neighbor's going through, what the children are going through next door. There could be a lot of domestic violence going on. We never know, it's a battle zone in each person's home. Because what happens behind closed doors, I'm just being real about it.
Oh, sure. I think it's pretty safe to assume that everybody's going through it right now, especially after the last 2 years,
Well, especially the quarantine. I mean, people have been forced. When I was a kid, I didn't have a bad dad. However, I chose to go hang out with my friend's mom. So a lot of kids that would go away because maybe they were in a bad situation in their home, they kind of got forced to stay quarantined and maybe not in the place they wanted to be. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
It goes back to those environmental things we were talking about, So this last slide, and we can get it wrapped up. I'd like to hear some closing thoughts from some of you guys if you'd like to chime in, but this one.
How about from Raven? I haven't heard from her.
This one really spoke to me, and hopefully it's something we can kind of leave you with to think about. The real question is, do you want to be someone or do something? And really, what does that mean? If I'm going to be someone, right, the accolades, whatever accomplishments, whatever goals were achieved, it's focused on me. So essentially it would be fleeting, right? It would go with me when I go. But if we're to do something good, something lasting, the initial act might be just as fleeting in the physical form, but the repercussions can be felt for a really long time. We posted every once in a while on the Eetherial Facebook and Instagram, would post some random inspirational stuff. And right around Christmas time, I think I posted something about the gift of a kind act or word being more valuable than a present. I've got a young daughter, and she is a great kid, but she's got a room full of toys that she hardly ever plays with. You know what I mean? And every one of those toys she was super excited about when she got it. It was great. That thing was awesome for that moment, and then poof, it's in the pile with everything else. But the experience is the feeling, that opening that present, the transfer of energy of, this is a gift for you from me. That's the part that they get excited about. That's the part that lasts. That's the excitement that makes them want to rip open another present. You know what I mean? It's not the fact that the toy is thrown in the corner. So to me, that doing something is it ripples more, it echoes way more than the physical, the tangible. Those long pauses are for anybody else to jump in if you'd like to.
Sometimes, unfortunately, I think those things are the same, though, right?
Sure.
Like
it depends on your definitions.
Well, you bought the gift, and the effect was
sure,
right. So, I guess it depends on the person's perspective on it.
Ooh, way to bring it back into the mentality part of the conversation, sir. I don't even know if you did that on purpose, right? It's the filter. It's how do you want to run it through the filter, right? Like that specific example of a gift being given to a child is, one that I think we can all relate to, but it's also, it can get kind of deep if you really want to break it down, because I've made my daughter stuff she's been just as excited about. You know what I mean? I've bought crap off Amazon that has taken me next to no effort that she's been pretty excited about too. So I don't know. I think it's the action. Maybe the example of the giving of the gift was the wrong one, but the time spent. I think is the better thing. That's what she's going to remember. She's going to remember the mornings waking up with her family opening gifts, not the gifts themselves, I guess would be a better way to say that.
I don't
like
think
that
it's a
perception.
coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that children have a better perspective of it than adults do.
Oh, absolutely. They're not tainted by all the crap and
Yeah.
all the societal stuff that we're talking about, right? All the stuff that we're trying to break free from.
Socks, bitch, are you kidding me?
Listen,
Yeah.
it's been like every meme, but like you're an adult when you get excited about socks and underwear for the holidays. Like I get excited about like running
That's true.
socks and training. Like I get excited about
Yeah.
clothes now. It's so sad, but I do. Oh man.
I didn't care about gifts this year. I really didn't. It was my I really humbled myself. I had to. And it goes on perception. Here we go. Philosophy, right? Everyone has their own perception. Does a squirrel go around the tree, or does have you guys ever heard that saying? Does a squirrel go around the tree, or does a tree go around the squirrel? It's depend on perception. Well, anyways, for me this year, Christmas, people were handing me some stuff. I didn't care about the gifts no more, man. It's just being around family. Like even being around you guys right now. Like to me, I didn't expect this, Jay or Chris. I didn't expect to learn so much right now. I didn't know what I was getting I didn't know what I signed up for, but I knew it was going to be positive because I've watched Jay for a while and I see what he does for the community. And I was like, you know what? My entire life, I've always had a good choice of friends. And for the last 15 years, I've been alone in the streets. However, the reason I've come around now and I've chosen to be a part of with you guys is the same reason where I'm going back with the gifts again, talking about the gifts. So I no longer need materialistic things, man. I learned to live without the materials first. I had to get all that ripped out of my life, be able to enjoy these moments. And I have a hard time to enjoy my son. Man, my son is wild and he's awesome. He's only 4 years old. And I want to be a part of his life. Lucky that I don't have a job and I have some income. However, I have to be a good role model,
Sure.
So that's where I'll leave it at that.
You guys have brought up perspective a couple different times. You guys have seen the that meme with the 6 versus 9, where it's a 6 written down. One guy's at the top of it. Let me pull it up real quick. I'll just pull it on my phone real quick. It doesn't. I don't need to do anything crazy here, but it's again an interesting thing.
Somebody's objectively wrong in that meme.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
So someone's only objectively wrong if somebody puts an underscore on one side of that. You'd have to ask who wrote it, who's wrong, right? So the interpretation of what's there is really up to debate with the context given in that picture, right? We'd need more information either from the artist or some type of reference point to know what was to actually say who's right or wrong. So the perception in that moment is really 50-50 without more context. You know what I'm saying? Just as an example of perception that you guys both brought up.
And that perception right there, I'm pursuing law. It's a long journey. However, I want to get into law school. A fair judge is able to stay over that 6 or that 9 because you have the defense and the other side. A fair judge be able to stand on both sides and see both sides' perception. And I think as humans, I mean, this is my opinion now, observing how we view things. If I'm self-centered and I only tell you and I want to argue with you that that's a 6, I lost. That's my opinion. And the reason I lost, I didn't give you the chance for me to go around to go look at what you're seeing, the way you're looking at it. Because if I would have had the chance to look at it in your perception, I most likely will see that 9. And I feel that what you guys are teaching and maybe how I would like to learn more how judges get picked, because I've seen a lot of judges in my life. I've sat in the courtrooms and I watch these men and women who are judging people's lives.
Rabbit hole.
Politics.
Oh, yeah, the rabbit hole. Oh Yeah, my bad. Let me try. Screw the political side. This is a perception, right? A perception. It could be anything.
Yeah,
So I'm just glad that I'm able to go into the other perception to see the 9. That's what I was
absolutely.
getting at.
So, and we'll leave it at this, and I want to get to your closing thoughts, and we'll wrap it up because we went super long. I'm glad we had a lot to talk about today. This is awesome, and I appreciate you guys participating. And even those that were just listening in, I thank you for attending. The that perception, that neutral perception comes with just objectivity, and we have to detach from the ego investment of me. Again, like I talked about, doing right for me versus doing right. Tim, I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, man. We're actually going to wrap this up. If anybody else has any closing thoughts, I'd like to hear from you. And then I'm going to give a little spiel about our socials, and we'll call it for the night.
I'm tapping out.
Appreciate you, Max. Thank you, brother. Awesome. Well, if nobody's got anything else, this is the first of hopefully many in this series of philosophical discussions. We are playing with the format. The next meeting, we're actually going to shift everything over to Tuesdays, because Tuesdays are going to work for me a little bit better in terms of keeping my training schedule the way it needs to be and having some more participation, because one of the facilities I work out of has a big training night on Wednesday nights, and some of those people were a little upset that they got left out tonight. So we'll do what we can to include them and have a little bit more dedicated time. So next week, we're looking at get on at 8 o'clock on Tuesday. Anybody that's seeing this after the fact on Facebook, on our social media, please feel free to interact. Send me questions via email at ethereal.llc@gmail.com. Any of our social medias, or comment on the YouTube. And by all means, we'd be excited and super stoked to have you join us the next time. If you have questions about anything we talked about today, call us on any of our nonsense or subjects or topics you even want to bring up to talk about for one of the next meetings. We'd love to hear from you. So from me, Jay at Aetherial, Coach Chris over here at Aetherial, and everybody else that have joined us today, we really appreciate you. And hope to hear and see you guys all again on the next one.
Appreciate you.